Okay guys, this is building up quite nicely. So far we've established that the author is saying that Shinar was in the west rather than the east. They're going to show us evidence saying that the languages of the Chaldea, the Irish, Hebrew are all similar. That's been good so far. It's building up nicely. So we're on chapter 4. Chaldea is in Western Europe, reference to the religion of the Chaldees, who I think were the Druids from Caledonia. The first Chaldean was Arphaxad. The first Chaldean was Arphaxad. The religion of the early Chaldean shepherds must have been that of Noah and his sons. The Chaldean religion, so called, must have affected the Hebrew. Up to the time, as well as after, the sons of Noah became Chaldean, and Hebrew megalithic altars and sacrifice by fire and prayer were signs of faith. The remains of the great Chaldean nation can be particularly distinguished in Great Britain and Ireland, and these remains have special reference to the religion of the Chaldean and the Hebrew. The signification of the word Calne, which was a place, the same as Calno of Chaldea, will assist to illustrate this. The first part of the word Calne, Cal, is sometimes varied into Kale or Gal or Kale, each of which mean in Irish to burn. It has no meaning in Hebrew more significant of fire. Sometimes by metonymy, the same word means a stone altar, which is sufficiently indicative of sacrifice by fire and smoke. Now, on the position we would establish as to the affinity of the Semitic and Aryan languages, the Hebrew nearly representing the one, as the Celtic may be said to almost represent the other, and because of the affinity we will look into the Hebrew for the other portion of the word Calne, and accordingly we discover that Na or Ne, as in Ger, means a pleasant habitation or a house, as in Ger. So the word Calne may be taken to signify the house, people who sacrifice by fire. Or according to Genesis, the Ne or Nai may come of Arabic and mean to shine, as denoting excellence, greatness, beauty. To say the word means to shine is not so figurative as to what may be understood from the three words following it, for the reason that it nearly expresses the principal quality of Cal or fire, that is, to burn. Calne probably was the origin of the word Chaldea. If we take it apart, the arts Kasdam, its name in Hebrew, we have only to account for the affix Dea, and it becomes intelligible. Then if Dea be interpreted as the beneficent or God of the Irish and not generally understood, we will avoid much of the ridiculous uncertainty presented to us in the rendering of the word through the Hebrew. For instance, Chaldea is given by Calmet as demons or as robbers or beasts or fields from shed, shaded, shada and key. There is no doubt for the word having its proper meaning in the Irish, for is God, that is language. So Cal and Dea mean the fire or altar of the god. Chaldea, fire, God, fire altar of the god. The word Calne is preserved in the present English as the name of the borough market town and parish Calne in Wiltshire. We find that Cal is prefixed to many other names of places and families, such as Caldar, north, south, east and west Calder. We've got Calder here actually, just a stone throw away. Or Calder, the Calder stones near Liverpool, Calder Bridge, Calder Abbey, Cumberland, and the river known by the name in the same place, is also found in the word Kirkcaldy, which may originally have meant a place of the church of Chaldee, of the Chaldee. So Kirk Chaldee, so we know Kirk is church. So it's this part here, the Chaldee, the church of the Chaldee. Beside Calne we have Akkad. The Akkad of Genesis 10 is another of the beginnings of Nimrod's kingdom, that there are many places called Akkad on this side of Europe. We see it once by referring to the topography of Ireland, where there are numerous names of ecclesiastical foundations compounded of this word. Akkad Dagan, St. Dagan, in Waterford, Acad Ur, Freshford, Kilkenny, Acad Garbain, another name for Dungoon, Waterford, Acad Caon, the gentle Acad, another name for Achonry, Sligo, beside many others. The word is used more extensively in Ireland if we take it to its corrupted form of agar, a field. Agar Druim is rendered the field of the Druid. The Orcads, or Orkneys as they are now spelt, is another example of the word, which seems to point, however strange it may appear, to the Okad, or fair, of the Arabs, the holy gathering of the singing of the golden verses. We have in Okad, as in Akkad, the word Kad, which means in Celtic, in Hebrew, and in Arabic, holy. The Akkad of Genesis no doubt refers to the Akkad that is to be found, not to an Akkad that has puzzled scholars determined to make an Eastern locus for it. And where should we look for Akkad but to the place that gives us so many examples of the name? Because Joktan, leading the Arabs over Europe, was contemporary with the Celtic-speaking people, and there was not time for the Arabic to have taken the form of a distinctive language, so the Arabs preserved many Celtic significations, and many legends, customs, and religious rites. What is called Arab tradition is often corroborative of Celtic tradition, as well as Old Testament history. Kadar Idris to the Arabic signifies the holy place of Enoch. Strange this should be the name of a mountain in the Principality of Wales. The Arab history of Ad, Thamud, Hud, Salah, those who dwelt at Al-Ras, and the inhabitants of the wood near Midian, is singularly enough drawn from the traditions preserved in the verses of the Okkads, bearing an almost perfect resemblance to the triads of the Druids. The Okkads, or holy fields, suggest the idea of religious teaching. The Akkad of Genesis is not only of the beginnings of Nimrod's kingdom. From it, as an institution, arose from the Akkadas of Ireland, the Okkads of Arabia, the academies of Greece. How near this bears upon the Cadmus, who is said to have introduced letters into Greece, is better seen when we consider that the Phoenician alphabet had, like the Old Irish, but 16 letters. The Saxon Genesis, generally supposed to have been written by a Caedmon, should, we are inclined to think, be understood as simply the beginning. This will appear when it is remembered that the Caedmon is the initial word of the book of Genesis in the Chaldee paraphrase of Targum of Onkelos, B. Cadman or B. Cadmon. The B is merely prefixed, which is a literal translation of Berith, Chith, in principio, the initial word of the original Hebrew text. It may be hardly necessary to observe that Jews quote and call the first book of the Bible be Rashith. The books are denominated according to their initial letters. The Chaldaic Genesis, even to the present day, is quoted and called by the Jews B. Cadman. As an adjective may be translated Eastern, as it is from the root Kadem, the East, a secondary meaning. Some of the words derived from this root may have been, they signify beginning or commencement, as much as to express the light, the sun, and the day from the East. The religion of Great Britain and Ireland was Druidism. And what was Druidism? The worship of one god by sacrifice on behewn stone altars after the custom of Noah. And this is where I think, guys, the Romans stole Celtic religion, because I think the Romans were polytheistic when they came to Britain. They discovered the Celtic people were worshipping one god, a monotheistic god. And maybe it wasn't Jesus or the biblical God, but it was one God, possibly the sun, or some celestial object. I think it could have been a comet or a sun. And I think the Romans took this from them, because they couldn't subjugate the people with force, so they stole their religion and bastardized it and controlled the people through it. Anyway, the Druids preserved the religion of Noah. There were 3 orders of the Druids. They were called by their people Icradeth, which is a word yet in the Celtic dialect, the Dreth being pronounced nearly the same as Druid. The Urbrides of the Irish, as may be gathered from Nennius and others, were the same as of the Druids of the Bards of the Welsh. Urbrides, that looks like Hebrides. We get the Isles of the Hebrides. The three orders were the High Priest or Chief Druid, who wore white, the Bard blue, the Ovate green. Green was the holy colour of the Okad of the Arabs, and was carried by them in remembrance of Al-Ras and Irem, the country according to the Koran in which they came. The Bancors or stone circles were the places where the white priests assembled for sacrifice and song. The word Bancor is made up of the Irish ban, white, and cora, a choir, so ban is understood in the word Albion, signifying the land of the White Cliffs, the ancient Britain. Ireland had a name with a similar meaning, Banba. The white mantles of the shepherds' kings, who were priests, have been always held as signs of purity, hence the modern priests and the choristers are arrayed in white. The Khazadim or Assyrian, other names for the people of Chaldea, have given us a clue to the Essenians, no doubt the Essenians, no doubt the same as the Assyrians, who, it will be shown, were afterwards represented by the Chaldees. The Essenians are given as Asdanim in Mac. Josephus, Philo, Pliny, and others commend the manner of living of the Essenians. After their captivity, the members of the Jewish church divided into the Chassidim, who superadded the constitutions and traditions of their elders, and the Zadokim, or righteous, who observed only the written laws of Moses. The Chassidim were the Chassidians or Assyrians. The Hebrew Keth is expressed in Greek sometimes by an aspirate, in Latin by an H, or it may be that is sometimes entirely omitted as an Assyrians. Let us now turn our attention to the Erech or Arak. It is said to mean length, or what lengthens, otherwise health, physic, from Areka. The supposed eastern city of Erech, Ptolemy places under the name Araka, near where the Tigris and Euphrates meet in Susiana. If the word is considered in connection with the Areka of Aminius, the place of the Arectian fields, abounding in naphtha, and as consequent subject to take fire, we then refer to its meaning to the first part of the Arak or Erech, substituted for air, the Hebrew ur or ar, fire or light. What are we forced to draw from this? Simply that ur in Irish, as well as kal, signifies that which burns, fire. That the Hebrews and Irish languages reciprocate many of the words is as true as that of the people who once spoke Hebrew had a common origin with those called Celts. First by the Greeks, who were nearly innocent of who the Gaedals or Gaels were, and of their country, even in the time of Pythagoras, who nevertheless has acknowledged he was taught much of his philosophy by one of their country, the Druid Abaris. This fact has an advantage of special authentication, and, if we were to see anything in it, it is that there, a high state of civilization and learning in the land of Abaris, while the philosophy and learning of Greece was as yet unsystemized, with its people only striving to know how to perpetuate their glory. So this word Abaris as well, it reminds me of Alba. Scotland was known as Alba as well. The Gael had one disadvantage in directly establishing in the minds of the Greeks the knowledge of his learning and civil greatness, and that was that his country was distant and without, as far as we judge, a rival nation to dispute its dominancy in the west, whereas the growing ambition of Rome, situated near to Greece in her zenith, acted for a time to encourage her military and aggrandizing efforts until at least Greece was to an extent absorbed. But meantime, the Romans received the refining influence of her learning and arts, and assisted more than can be correctly estimated to the spread of the knowledge of her greatness, as their arms extended throughout the west of Europe. It's funny, guys, because I think that these people, the Druids, the Chaldeans, the Celts, they were ahead of the game when it came to civilization. I think they were more civilized. I think when it came to their gods, when it came to monotheism, they were ahead of the game. And I think even with astronomy, I think they even knew that the Earth, even if the world thought the Earth was flat, I think the Druids, by examining the stars and the celestial bodies, the eclipses, just watching sunsets, sunrises, they must have even knew that the Earth was spherical to predict the eclipses and things like that. So who knows, maybe these guys were trying to teach the world about the true nature of our Earth, and Rome tried to keep it down, and this is what could be happening now with the flat Earth. Anyway, where was I? Europe. After a time, Christianity made its way, and the learning of the fathers, having had to operate more or less upon the pagan beliefs of Greece and Rome, while doing so, necessarily handed down to the modern biblicist and classicist the full growth of Greek and Roman insight and teaching, which of course included the little known of their origin. It never, as we have said before, entered the minds of the Greeks, nor did it enter the Roman mind, that the elements of their languages as well as of their blood might be proved to have originated with a people in whose land are monuments as wonderful and as old as the Cyclopean structures of Greece and Rome, and whose religion, full of beauty, mystery and philosophy, lingers yet in the mind and heart, not only of the Hebrew and the Catholic, but the Mahometan and the modern Greek. It will not require much to convince the impartial investigator that, if Ur has the same meaning in Irish and in Hebrew, the word, as it was applied, must in some way be attached to whatever commemorates the old faith. We use it purposely in the singular of those people, and as our means of proving them as having been identical is forthcoming, we will, for the present, turn from Eric to the place that was bewildered antiquarians and scholars in the search for it. We mean Ur of the Chaldees. Ooh, chapter 5, people. So, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in chapter 5. Take care.